So I think one of the things that has emerged from our conversations today is that many of us have a kind of privilege that we need to do more with, that we need to use to forge our own path. And many of the women and the men you've seen on the stage have done precisely that. But what happens when you actually have to step out of the shadows of perhaps India's most famous surname and try and carve an identity for yourself? Of course, a lot of people might turn around and say, you have the advantage of your last name, but equally, you are constantly under the microscope, you live in a fishbowl, everyone has an opinion on you. If you achieve something, they'll say, oh, was it because of your family? It can't be easy. And yet, if you remember what Latika said to us in the morning, Latika is the girl who watched her father burn her mother to death. And before going from this stage, Latika said, आप सबके पास तो इतना opportunity है, आप कुछ करिए, अगर मैं कुछ कर सकती थी तो आप तो बिल्कुल ही कर सकते हैं. And you heard the same spirit from the women in the army, you heard the same spirit from Vidya Balan. And I think that's what the next conversation is going to be about. It's what I call this freedom to be yourself. The freedom to be yourself, this freedom to be yourself. And I want to welcome on stage a mother-daughter duo who have been great friends of We the Women, and both have done that incredible thing. They have forged an identity for themselves with the whole world's attention, sometimes judgment on them. Opening the doors for all women to be themselves. Please put your hands together for Shweta Bachchan and Navya Nanda. Let's have a big round of applause there. Hello. Hello again. Hello. Thank you. Just grab the first two seats. That's okay. Anyway. Thank you for coming.
Thank you for having us.
I was just talking, we've been having these conversations all day, and there was a young girl who came from a small town in UP, and she stood on the stage and she said, if I can achieve things, not having access to education, not having access to wealth, can you imagine the things you could do? And yet, if you flip the question around, for you, Shweta, and for Navya, in many ways, you'll always be tagged with your family's name. Being Amitabh Bachchan's daughter, and Jaya Bachchan's daughter and granddaughter, Harivansh Rai and Teji Bachchan's grandchildren and great-grandchildren, that comes with privilege, but it also comes with everybody already having an opinion on who you might be. And yet, what I think both of you have done is really carved and forged your own path. How difficult has it been for you? I'll start with you, Shweta.
Thank you for having us here, Barkha.
Speak a little louder. Thank you.
I don't think we're the right people to speak about difficulty because there are a lot of women out there who have it far, far, far worse than we have. We have a lot of things.
I'm going to come nearer you so I can hear you better. Maybe it might be just the mic. It's okay.
I mean,
I'll hold it.
As you said, we do enjoy a great privilege, and we are very cognizant of that. It's funny that you say that there's, I've always been someone's daughter, but today at your show, I was also someone's mother, and I don't know which made me more proud. So I was happy to see the work Navya's been doing.
I think that's something we can all, you were wanting to clap, so feel free to clap. You have the right mic now, so go ahead.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I think I'm going to let Navya do all the talking because she's also done most of the achieving. I seem to be the chaperone.
I don't think Navya would take well to a chaperone. Navya, how's that going?
No, firstly, thank you so much for having us here, and hello to everyone who came out here today. I don't think that I've done most of the achieving. I think being a mother is probably the hardest job that anyone in this room can have. So I give all the achievement credit to her. But thank you.
Shweta has that expression which is like kind of Okay, Navya, really?
No,
I
but
don't know.
I say this a lot, and I've said it
do,
many
do.
times, and I keep emphasizing on how important a mother's role is, and I think that that achievement is not something anything I can do or anyone else sitting in this room can take away from. So I just want to let you know that you've done all the achieving here. But to answer your question, I don't really know how to answer that as well. I agree with everything she said, but even when we talk about last names and when you talk about living up to the last name, I think that
Both living up to it and then living parallel to it. I won't say away from it, but
Yeah.
like being your own person.
I think, in terms of living up to the last name, I think everyone in this room has a last name, and it's not just my responsibility to live up to mine, but I think all of us here to live up to the names that we've been given, not just for the name, but for our families. I think it gives me a lot of pride when, I'm able to achieve something, and I know that my family is proud of me for that. So that's, I think, what I would say to living up to the last name. And I think forging something different, it's not actually very different. I think people forget that though I have one side of the family that comes from, an arts background, I have another side that comes from a business background and an entrepreneurship background. My father is a businessman. My dadi was a businesswoman. So I do have that gene in me as well, which is, I think, the side that I took to the most. I enjoy that world. I think it's not completely different, but something that I'm doing by myself and something that I've been doing myself for 3 years. And I think it's great. I think everyone should forge their own identity. And being a woman, I think that's even more important to do.
But in a way, Shweta, I mean, your son is the person who's decided to go into acting, and your daughter is the one who's, taking on the mantle of the business. And I see Radhika there. Radhika Raje Gaikwad, who's from the royal family of Baroda, was on the stage earlier, and she was making the point that she's a mother to 2 daughters. And even today, people will walk up to her and say, why don't you think of having a son? Because the son can inherit the legacy. The reason I'm raising this example is, you're running, among the many million things that you're doing, one of the things that you also do is to sort of partner your father in running his business. And typically, even in very, very educated families, it is the boy, if there is a boy, it is the son, if there is a son, who is tasked to do that. So, Shweta, I'm wondering as a parent how you look at that. Was the gendering of your children ever something you thought about? I mean, obviously you were mindful. I'm sure you wanted your daughter to have certain freedoms that so many daughters don't. But how did you ensure as a parent that you were bringing them up with the same freedom without the urge that so many have to corset a girl more than a boy?
Interesting question. I don't know if it was something I consciously did. I would like to thank my mother for anything that I may have, carried forward in bringing up my children, because I think she was very free and open with me as a parent. And I think that then directed my parenting style. But from the beginning, I was very clear that both the children, we were very clear when bringing up our children that they both had the same education, and they actually did. And there was never any discrepancy. And even as far as their careers went, we just assumed they would both work in the business. And then Agastya surprised us.
And you didn't really want them to act?
It wasn't the first thing on my mind.
And why is that?
I'm not an actor. And when you're not an actor and you belong to a family that is full of actors, you do have a little bit of anonymity, and you do see a grittier, darker side of that life, which most people do not see. And it's also a lot more personal. So, someone may write something nasty. It doesn't mean anything to 100 readers who are going to press a like button. Yeah. But to someone's daughter or sister or wife or mother, it's hurtful. So I come from that sort of prejudice. And, you never know where destiny
basically
is. You just have to toughen up, I think, Barkha. I always tell my kids, I'm very thin-skinned. I don't want to read all these comments. So basically, if you read something horrible, as is often the case these days, because there are trolls everywhere about
your children or your family, you can't ignore it, or you find it tough to ignore it?
Oh, I'm an ostrich. I just put my head in the sand, and I think these young kids are very good today at dealing with this. I'm sure it's taking a terrible toll somewhere, and that is something, that needs to be addressed. But I just put my head in the sand. I don't go looking for all of this.
How have you dealt with all the attention? You want to obviously be, in a sense, looked at for your work, for what you're doing in business, for what you're doing with women and health, your podcast show, What the Hell, Navya, your entrepreneurial spirit, which is, so many different things, juggling so many balls in the air, so much creative energy. But in the end, there might be somebody there'll be a pap at some airport and they'll write about something you're wearing or not wearing, or they'll have some speculative comment about your personal life. And you're much more, unlike your mom, social media friendly. You're used to that kind of in-your-face culture. But there must have been times when even you've been kind of hurt or disgusted or angry as a young woman at the kind of speculative and sometimes even cruel commentary that you may have confronted.
Yeah, I think everyone on social media today probably has had their fair share of trolling or negative comments. And I think I keep telling myself that I chose to put myself out there, whether that's for my work, whether that's my podcast, whatever that may be. I chose to put myself out. Our podcast, sorry.
Oh, what did she? She's probably
She said our podcast.
Our podcast. Okay, that's good.
Our podcast. I chose to put myself out there. I chose to put myself on social media, knowing what that's going to come with, the positive and the negative. And it's something that I have to deal with. I don't think that, there are a lot of difficulties that I have personally in life. I'm grateful for that. So, it's okay. It comes with what I've chosen to do. And sometimes it's good to have criticism and to, reflect on that.
What's
sometimes.
the most hurtful thing that you've had to confront?
I don't know, I have to really think about. There are people who will comment on your appearance, on your weight, on your the way that you speak, the way that you walk, and sometimes when people come.
So that you're not qualified to do the thing.
Yeah, that was one actually of the big things that I got a couple months back, that I wasn't qualified to do what I was doing because I'm too young, and at 25, I don't know about the state of women, and I don't know about healthcare or any of these issues enough.
Who said this to you?
Somebody on Twitter, and then it became a thing. And actually, I never really addressed it because I just kind of focus more on my work.
But I think in some other platform, you said, I don't have to wait to be 70 to change
because
things.
my logic is that, majority of the population in our country is young, and I don't think that, what I'm speaking for is anything wrong. And I don't think that there's a right age where somebody decides to start speaking against something or for something. And if I believe in it, then why should I not be able to speak for it? And if I'm 25, that does not matter because, my country is majority of people my age or close to my age. So if we aren't going to talk about things that are affecting us or concerning us, then, who's going to build the future of the country? So that's what I kind of...
How did you get interested in the issue of women and health, in particular breaking the taboo around subjects like menstruation? We had I don't know if Asha ji is still here. Is she still there? Asha ji, thoda stage pe aiye. Because I know you've done so much work, especially in access to menstrual hygiene. Asha ji, मैं इनको बता रही थी कि आओ आप मेरे साथ बैठो भी, you can sit. मैं इनको बता रही थी कि सुबह आप कैसे कहानी हमें बता रहे थे कि जब आप छोटी थी तो जब आपका पीरियड आता था और कैसे आपको लोग ताने देते थे और आपको समझ भी नहीं आया कि सैनिटरी पैड क्या है, और आप अपने ही लफ्जों में बताइए क्या हुआ?
जी, तो मेरे साथ ये हुआ था कि मैं फर्स्ट बार पीरियड आया था तो मैं स्कूल गई थी तो मेरे जो स्कूल ड्रेस था तो वो वाइट कलर का पजामा था, तो उसको ऐसे करके बैठते हैं तो पीछे स्टूल पे जो टेबल था उस पर बहुत सारा ब्लीडिंग इतनी थी कि वो पूरा स्टूल ख़राब हो गया। तो मेरी फ्रेंड सामने बैठे खाना खा रही थी तो उन्होंने जैसे पता चल गया था उसको कि मैं सामने ही बैठी हूँ, तो उसको पता लगा कि आशा बैठी थी यहाँ पे। तो फिर बाद में फ्रेंड ने बोला कि आशा को पीरियड्स हुआ है। उस समय मेरा एग्ज़ाम भी था, मैं टीचर को बोलने में झिझक रही थी कि क्या बोलूँ, तो मैंने पेट का बहाना बनाया और मैं घर चली गई। फिर दूसरे दिन मुझे वापस से झिझक हो रही थी कि मेरी फ्रेंड क्या बोलेगी मुझे, किसके पीरियड्स हो रखा था। मतलब उस दायरे में मैं नहीं जाना चाहती थी, तो मैं छुट्टी भी ले ली और एग्ज़ाम भी मेरे छूटे इसकी वजह से। और फिर बाद में मम्मी पापा वगैरह, मम्मी थी तो पीरियड्स में बताया नहीं कि क्या होता है, तो मैं सिर्फ कपड़ा दे दिया कि हाँ ले लो इसे। अब कैसे इसको डिस्पोज करें, स्कूल के अंदर डिस्पोज करने के वो नहीं था, टॉयलेट साफ़ नहीं थे, पानी नहीं था, नैपकिन था ले तो नैपकिन पे पानी से कैसे वॉश करें उसको। तो ये हुआ। और फिर धीरे धीरे मैं जैसे काम करने लगी तो मैं टीम वर्क के साथ अब बात करती हूँ कि जैसे भी कभी प्लान बनता है टीम के साथ कि बाहर जाने का, तो मैं अब खुल के बोल सकती हूँ, कम्युनिटी के साथ भी खुल के बोल सकती हूँ कि मुझे पीरियड्स हो रखा है, मैं अभी फील्ड में नहीं जा सकती।
और आप खुल के बोलती हैं। सुबह यहाँ पे सिर्फ एक लड़की खुल के बोलने के लिए तैयार थी। हमारे क्लास में भी पढ़े लिखे होने के नाते भी एक हिचकिचाहट होती है।
बिल्कुल।
तो मैं नव्या से पूछने वाली थी, क्योंकि वो इस स्पेस में बहुत काम करती है, कि घर में भी तो थोड़ा भेदभाव होता था
जी।
वो क्या होता?
जी, तो घर में भी यही था कि मम्मी नीचे सुला देती थी, दरी बिछा दिया और सो जाओ, पर वो मैं पता नहीं था बेड पे नहीं सोना था। और फिर मम्मी अचार के हाथ नहीं लगाना, पापड़ नहीं बनाना, कमरे में बंद कर दिया, ख़राब हो जाएंगे, कुछ चिप्स बनाया तो ख़राब हो जाएंगे, तो टच हो जाएगा। तो फिर अब मैं जैसे जैसे मेरे को झिझक डर खुला मेरा, तो मैं अभी बिना के मंदिर में भी जा सकती हूँ और मंदिर में जा सकती हूँ बिना के। पहले मुझे झिझक था कि मैं किसी को बताऊँगी तो मेरे लोग हंसेंगे मेरे ऊपर, मेरा मजाक उड़ाएंगे, किसी को अपने फ्रेंड को बोलेंगे अपने को, तो मुझे वहाँ डर था। वो तो मैं डर नहीं, और अपनी कम्युनिटी के साथ में बॉयज़ हो या यूथ हो, पुरुष हो या महिला हो, उसके साथ खुल के बात कर सकती हूँ, बता सकती हूँ। और मेरे साथ भी अभी 4-5 दिन का हाल ही में ये बात हुआ था कि मेरे फ्रेंड को पीरियड्स हुआ था, तो उसने वो झिझक रही थी। मैंने कहा कि भैया आप ना सैनिटरी नैपकिन लेके आना, मुझे पीरियड्स हो रखा है, तो वो लेके आए।
एक चीज़ है, अब बिफोर आई कम बैक टू नव्या, औरतों को सबसे ज़्यादा ज़रूरत किस चीज़ की है, जो खासकर जो स्कूल में लड़कियां जाती हैं या जो यंग लड़कियां हैं पीरियड्स को लेके, क्योंकि स्कूल से भी ड्रॉप आउट हो जाती है, सबसे ज़्यादा पैड्स है, मेंस्ट्रुअल कप है, जानकारी है, क्या है?
वो सबसे ज़्यादा झिझक होती है, टीचर के साथ बात नहीं कर पाती, चाहे आदमी हो या महिला हो, डरती है कि वो मेरे बारे में क्या सोचेंगे, वो मेरा मजाक उड़ाएंगे। और उसके बाद स्कूल के अंदर डिस्पोज करने के साधन नहीं होते, तो कहाँ करे वो चेंजेस कहाँ करे ताकि वो वापस पेट बदल सके, तो उनको साधन नहीं था उनके, और पानी भी नहीं था।
जी, पहले तो धन्यवाद, आप बैठिए। मैं नव्या से पूछ रही थी कि इस स्पेस में वो कैसे आई। आशा जी, थैंक यू। कैन वी हैव अ राउंड ऑफ अप्लॉज फॉर आशा जी फॉर शेयरिंग हर स्टोरी। I just wanted to ask you, how did you get interested in this space? Because again, our privilege, our relative privilege, we've not had to face this kind of discrimination. How did the issue of sort of menstrual hygiene, access to sort of menstrual hygiene, public health and women in particular become such a passion of yours?
So I think hearing stories like this fuels that passion and makes me realize that we're not doing near enough, and there's lots more that has to be done. There was an instance actually when I had just started my company Ara Health, where we work in women's healthcare, and we were doing a workshop with a group of girls between the ages of 12 and 14 about menstrual hygiene and the importance of sanitation during your period. And one of the girls, I think she was 12 years old, stood up and shared a story with us and said that when she got her first period, she was very surprised that her blood was red, because for the longest time on TV, when she saw sanitary pad ads, the liquid was blue. So she thought that her period blood would be blue as well.
And it's called also Whisper.
Exactly. So that, I think, shocked all of us. And I realized that, even companies that are offering sanitary pads still are not transparent in the way that they message or talk about menstrual hygiene. So I think that was one of the really moving stories that kind of motivated me to just talk about it a lot more, normalize it. I think that's really where it starts, is normalizing it, whether that's at home, at school, even on social media. I think that social media is now a very, very powerful tool. It's in the hands of almost 600 million people in this country, and normalizing it on platforms like that just make the conversation a lot more easy to have.
And I want to come back to the idea of female leadership, how we look at gender. Sometimes, Shweta, it's a lifelong battle and there are no easy answers. And Vidya Balan was on the stage earlier and she was saying it took her years before she could reach the point where she became comfortable with her body. And when there's some incredible photographs on your Instagram feed of all the generations of strong women in your family. And I was just thinking that no matter how strong our role models have been, no matter how strong we imagine ourselves to be, no matter how progressive we imagine ourselves to be, sometimes we find ourselves slipping into this kind of stereotypical or conditioned response. And I see Navya trying to move into this space where she's engaging with women completely at the grassroots. But even people like us, we're not totally able to get onto a stage and talk about our period. We want to be like that intellectually, but we're often not what we want to be intellectually. So I'm just wondering, are there freedoms that you didn't have for yourself? And I know I paused as I asked it because I know Jayaji, and she's such a strong personality that I can't imagine that she would have had you, be denied any freedoms compared to your brother. But it was a different time growing up. Were there freedoms you didn't have for yourself that you want to ensure your daughter has?
Am I the right? Yes. I do think yes, because
Just hold it up.
Times were different. And it's not just about what a mother wants for her daughter per se, it's also the family. You live in a family, it has its certain rules, regulations, or way of functioning. So you have to sort of also adhere to that. Things were different. I shy away from saying that I'm more Navya's friend, but I do.
But
feel,
are you?
No, I'm
She
her
doesn't
mother.
like to be called that.
I'm her mother.
You call her that?
No, now that she's told me again and again that she doesn't want to
But
be
did you
called
call
my
her
friend.
that?
No, I don't think ever. I mean, I might have, and then I got that look, so then I stopped.
I find it ridiculous because I'm not her friend. She's not going to tell me everything, but I'm grateful for what they do share with me. And I do feel this is something that we need to be cognizant of with women especially, and especially in this country, is there's a lot of shame associated with your period, your body, procreation, what have you. And I think the only way to break out of that is to be able to talk freely and openly, like the lovely lady just said, that there's no one to talk to and speak about these things. And I think when you're a young girl, who's the first person you can talk to, who's another woman, is your mother. And I think just being open and not judging is perhaps the best thing you could do for your child, especially your girl child.
Well, I was going to say you're a parent to a boy and a girl. And how even-handed have you been in bringing them up?
I've been tougher with Navya.
Why?
Because I feel the world isn't easy on women. And you have to be that much stronger and that much more vigilant and careful, and you have to think twice.
And how have you been tougher? She's having a good laugh.
Not about deadlines and stuff like that.
Yeah, not curfew hours or whatever.
No, nothing like that. I feel also their personalities are very different. I would like to think Agastya is a bit of an old soul. Navya is a little naive. So I think in that way, a little more sort of...
She's having a good laugh, by the way, sitting next to you.
Not judging, but a little more non-trusting of certain friends or relationships. These things I would be a little more careful about and talk to her about. But I mean, of course, she has the liberty to live her life the way she wants. I think the only time we had a really big disagreement on something you wanted to do, and I really vetoed it in a very strong way, was that belly.
Say it to me before you say it out loud.
No, now just say it.
I think there are certain things she's been...
Okay, what is the biggest disagreement?
No, it was a piercing that
She was against it and I wanted to get
a
it.
piercing.
Yeah.
Where?
No, she was like, don't
her belly.
don't get piercings and don't do all of that. So that was one of our biggest fights. And I was also very young at the time. So I said, why should I not? I'll get whatever. So
And then she did, and then I just removed it. where she had it done, and I
Yeah, she said, "Oh, can I see it?" I said, "Oh, okay." She just removed it.
took it off, and I was like, "This is not something that you should."
So you were stern with her in.
I'm sterner.
You're
with
basically
her.
your mother's daughter. There's these lovely videos. I love Jayaji. There's these videos when Navya's walking with her and Jayaji's firing some paparazzi or the other very deservedly, may I add, for just thrusting their cameras into
And then recently she was very nice to them actually. She posed with, I don't know if anyone saw that, but she was, really flipped the switch few days
But
ago.
the funnier videos are where you have this grin and she's scolding somebody or the other and they're also like kind of...
I was just like, walk. Just keep
She's
walking.
amazing. I think, that's why when I introduced you, like, Amitabh Bachchan, yes, but Jaya is a legend and an icon.
So I think Navya has a lot of my mother in her.
Really? How?
I think she has a lot of conviction, and I don't think it's easy to shake that. She's passionate about a lot of causes and is vocal about them. She's a lot more comfortable to come on a stage and talk about things she believes in than someone like me. I'm very shy and not good at all this. And it's actually amazing to see the way she's managed to do all this, because I'm not that person. I'm more introverted.
But you did, you wrote a book. We had you at We the Women previously, just when your book was out. You've been a designer, you've had a column. Don't you think you're too self-effacing?
I think this was in our podcast. I'm really not good with pushing myself at all. I really don't know how to do that. It's just so awkward and embarrassing for me. And Navya told me before we got on, please don't be awkward. Please,
Is she being awkward?
No, I mean,
whenever she stumbles, she says whatever she said. And I'm like, what did I say?
No, I if any of you have heard the podcast, I think she's got a lot to say, and I probably don't half the time give her the credit in saying that she's right, but 99% of the time she is, and she says so many things that, I hear, and I kind of tell her that, the world needs to hear this, because people look at her as being very shy and very,
Stuck up.
Not stuck up, but she is very shy, and that's why I keep saying that it's not that, you don't have things to say, and a lot of sensible things to say, and so that's why the podcast was a slight push in that direction of getting her to actually talk about things that she believes in.
But really, what have you... I mean, it couldn't be that you agree on everything but a belly pierce. Really? If she had come to you and say, I want to join films, and I know we've spoken about this earlier, but suppose Navya had said, and I know there was a time briefly when you flirted with the idea.
I think everyone at some point flirts
Not
with the
everyone.
idea. I mean, I enjoy dancing.
I didn't flirt with the idea, so I don't know why you're saying everyone.
No, but I mean, everyone enjoys dancing, and it was never like a serious...
I said, are you sure? And it's really hard work.
How old were you when you thought of this?
I don't know, 16,
Okay. And suppose she had gone through.
Like my son, I would just support her silently.
Is it the fishbowl that terrifies you, that you don't want your children to be in because you have been in it all your life?
Yes. I mean, which parent wouldn't want, to protect their children? It's your natural instinct. But of course, at some point, you have to realize that they're adults and they have to go out and face the world and deal with it.
So, Navya, let's come back to what you're doing. Because, this is a lot about both of you. Yeah,
and there's no protection from the fishbowl. You
There's
could
no
be
protection from?
at all. You could be related to everybody in the world. And that's not going to stop people from judging you, looking at you. My father could be larger than life in every way. It's not going to stop what people say about my brother or my mother or myself or his grandkids or daughter-in-law. It's once you're there, you're there.
So I want to ask you that, and then I'll come to Navya. Like growing up, you lived as the daughter of Amitabh and Jaya. And there has been, for as long as they have been in public life, both in very different ways and similar ways, both, because, both. Mr. Bachchan also, at one point, kind of was briefly in politics. Jayaji has stuck to it. I ask you this because of the nature of their jobs. There is a constant commentary on what people think they know, what people opine on, judge on. How was that for you growing up, for you and Abhishek?
When we were younger, we had a very protected upbringing. No magazines at home, no film magazines, ever.
Really?
They sort of banned my father and he banned them back. So we never bought them, we never read them. It was sort of, we never had them at home. So we didn't know. And it was only when we got older and like around Navya's age that, these things started filtering down to us. And I think we've learned to just roll with the punches now. You get used to it. I mean,
has there been anything particularly hurtful?
There are lots of hurtful things, but now you just take it as I said it, and I said it on her podcast. There's so many perks that come with being my parents' daughter. That these are the few things that you have to deal with, and you just have to deal with it. So you deal with it as gracefully and quietly without drama as you can.
What next for you? You are, you're a businesswoman, you're an entrepreneur, you're working in, okay, tell the audience all the things you're working in. I think if I started to count, I'd run out of time. Right? Tell us all the things you're working on.
So I have a startup called Ara Health, which works in women's healthcare. I have a non-profit that works in education, financial independence, domestic violence, and legal awareness for women. I also work with my father in our family business, Escorts Kubota. And last year I did a podcast with my mom and my nani called What the Hell Navya. And we are working.
Who says that a lot to you?
Both of them. that was how we came up with the name, because while we were recording the episodes, I think it came up at least 10 times per recording. So we said, why don't we just keep the name What the Hell Navya?
So what next?
Season 2, hopefully, of the podcast. Just more work through the non-profit, more work with my dad, and whatever other opportunities come my way. I kind of really, sometimes to my mom's.
Navya doesn't know how to say no.
Yeah.
And my son only says no.
Oh, really?
So it's a very tough balancing act. Sometimes I tell her, Navya, you're a bit too serious for your age. Just have some fun. Chill out a little bit. Go hang out with your friends. Travel, see the world.
Get a belly pills.
Get the belly pills.
No. But, I mean...
Did you ever go back and wear it again? No?
No. And now I'm like, aren't you glad you don't have a gaping hole in your belly button? And she's like, yes, you were right. It was very silly. But even today, she was at a seminar in Delhi and she's had to take time off, come here. Now she's going to go back and be at it till 11 at night. And I'm like, gosh, I have a funner life than you have. And I'm so
this is fun for me. I really enjoy it. And
she's way too serious.
I don't remember the last time a mother is saying about her daughter, she's way too serious.
She's reading, or watching.
Why are you complaining about this?
Because I think so many mother-daughters see all these smiles, even like familiar arguments and sort of familiar, gentle disagreements. Well, Navya, I want to tell you, I love your mom, but we're here actually today to talk to both of you, but to honor you. To honor you because you could have taken any number of paths, right? You could have taken any number of paths, but you decided to take all of them. Minus the acting, but you really did create and have created spaces with entrepreneurial spirit, but also working at the grassroots with people who don't have, and with women who don't have access to things that we just take for granted. So I want you to step up for
Thank
a moment.
you.
And yeah, Shweta, you can be the proud mom. And okay, come. Let her have this moment, she says. Well, we want to honor Navya Nanda with the HER award. HER stands for Hope, Empower, Rise. The award is ready, but as you've seen through the day, we've had some very interesting interactions between who we call to felicitate whom. And it is my great honor to welcome on stage, both to be in conversation with me in a moment from now, but also to present Navya with the Entrepreneur of the Year, a Woman of Impact Award, India's most powerful, influential business leader, someone who exudes power, ambition, and is unapologetic about women and money. Please put your hands together for Vani Kola. Can we have Vani on stage? There she is. Let's have a big round of applause for Vani. And Good to see you, Mia. Award, please. Yes. And can we hear it for Vani and Navya? Louder, louder, louder. Let's hear a big round of applause here. Would you like to say something? Because I heard you under your breath say big fan.
Yeah, no, I just hugged her and said I'm a big fan. So thank you. It really means a lot to have you give this to me. So thank you.
Very proud of you and wishing you so much more.
Thank you so much.
Anything you want to say about entrepreneurial spirit? We'll talk a lot about it, but while Navya's on stage.
No, you know, when you see young girls, she's probably my daughter's age. I have 2 daughters also. It just makes me very, very proud to see the next generation pick up the mantle so easily. I was standing there and watching your conversation, just the confidence and the comfort with which this seems natural. And that's what we want to make it happen for so many more women together. But these role models, these young girls who are the next generation role models, that gives me a lot of joy.
Thank you. I think it's all the stereotypes that women like you have fought in the business world that allows us to do what we do. So thank you for setting that for us.
Well, these are the moments we live for.
Far ahead than we did.
Absolutely. May every generation open doors for other women. Thank you, Navya. Thank you, Shweta. Thank you. Thank you so much.